Welcome to Studio One on this Thursday, October 6th. I'm Tom Beering. It's great having you with us today. Up ahead in this half hour, we'll talk to journalist and UND professor Bill Holden. Also joining us, author and playwright Bill Borden. And in our Open Doors segment, we'll take a look at contemporary Christian rock. But first, let's go to the news desk with Marilyn Vetter. Marilyn?
Thank you, Tom. UND's newest aviation building will be dedicated next week. The Aerospace Training and Research Center across the street from Cass is worth about $20 million, all coming from a grant from the FAA. It's owned by UND and leased by Northwest Airlines. The ATRC was built primarily to give students the training they could only get through a major air carrier. The new training program called Spectrum uses interactive video and simulators. Students can get the same amount of flying time during 4 years at UND that would normally take an extra 5 years after graduation. Current aviation students won't be allowed to take classes at ATRC because it's designed for beginning students. Right now, students sponsored by China Air are here to take classes in the center. Regular classes will probably start here next semester. UND Police Chief Dwayne Cherpesky says the accident of an 18-year-old UND student Tuesday morning was not the result of a high-speed chase. Cherpesky says the police officer was only trying to inform Gil Urich that his headlights were out, but Urich wouldn't stop and his car plunged off the Columbia Road overpass. Cherpesky says the officer was within 10 miles of the speed limit, which isn't considered a high speed. Cherpesky says UND police look at 3 things when deciding whether to pursue a car: the type of offense, location, and potential hazard to others. Urich is still in serious condition at United Hospital. The U.S.-Canada Free Trade Agreement recently signed by President Reagan is disliked by some but not all, and the split seems to be between farmers and businessmen. The agreement has become a sore spot for farmers who fear the American markets will be flooded with Canadian grain. Canadian markets will have better access into the U.S. along eastern waterways than will the landlocked Midwestern U.S. farmers. In addition, some Canadian farmers will still receive transportation subsidies, and there are restrictions on imported wheat that all but freeze American wheat farmers out of Canada. Local farmer Mark Dallin says the agreement will set American farmers back even further.
Be taking this grain from the Canadians, their lower quality grain, and blending it with our supplies. And to the American farmer, we're basically getting dumped on.
Subsidy differences will remain in place for the first few years of the agreement until all tariffs are eliminated within the next 10 years. But while farmers aren't pleased with the bill, business people remain cautiously optimistic. Grand Forks Urban Development Director John O'Leary says unlike Midwestern farmers, Midwestern businesses will gain the most from new Canadian markets.
We'll see a lot of goods and services coming through our northern borders, and that's good news and bad news. I think it's going to make us more competitive in the marketplace by the fact that we must get competitive in the marketplace.
American businesses are less prepared than their Canadian counterparts to do business under the agreement. But O'Leary warns that goods and services will flow both ways and that American businesses will have to educate themselves on how to overcome the trade differences.
We need to take a step back and try to convince American businesses that there is a large market there, especially for the northern tier states.
The free trade agreement is waiting for approval from the Canadian Parliament. And tonight you can meet the new Sioux hockey team at the Ingolstadt Arena. That's a complete look at today's news, Tom.
Right, Marilyn, I think that's 6:45 at the arena, I think. This week is a special week for all student employees. It marks National Student Employee Week. Every year in the first week of October, departments are encouraged to recognize their student employees for their contribution to the university. Studio One would like to wish all those hardworking students a happy week. Keep up the good hard work, guys. This will be a busy weekend for the Fighting Sioux. Friday, the volleyball team is traveling to South Dakota State University of Brookings, and Saturday they move to Sioux Falls to challenge Augustana College. On the home front, the football team will face Mankato State University Saturday at 1:30 at Memorial Stadium. And again for hockey fans, the USA Hall of Fame hockey game is Saturday with UND up against the University of Minnesota Duluth in Eveleth, Minnesota. Weather is now the topic, so let's go to Studio One's very own meteorologist, Susan Betcher. Susan?
Thanks, Tom. The cold air that we had moving through our region earlier on this week has now started to move eastward, and it looks like we could have a touch of Indian summer this weekend. In the almanac, we had a high yesterday of 54 degrees, a morning low of 30 degrees, and no precipitation was recorded. Currently at 4 p.m. in the Grand Forks area, under sunny skies, we have a temperature of 61 degrees. Our winds are from the south-southwest at 13 miles per hour, and the relative humidity is 44%. Looking across the nation's map, we see that it's been a pretty boring day as far as the weather is concerned. Out to our west, temperatures have ranged between in the 50s and 60s in the north, while down south they've been in the 60s and 70s, with even an 85 being reported in Phoenix, Arizona. To our east, the high-pressure center that was located over Grand Forks on Tuesday has now moved into northern Illinois and is continuing to spread cold air throughout the northeastern part of the United States, where temperatures are mainly in the 40s and in the 50s. Down south, a stationary front is located just on the tip of Florida that is creating some rain showers and thunder showers in Miami. As for the central part of the United States, a stationary front can be found through Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, spreading rain showers and thunderstorms throughout the central part of the states. That's what it looks like across the United States today. I'll be back a little bit later with the Red River Valley weekend forecast. Tom?
Okay, Susan, a couple of events worth mentioning. The award-winning Broadway musical production Cats will be at the Chester Fritz Auditorium for one performance only, on Tuesday evening, October 11th at 7:30. For more information, contact the Chester Fritz ticket office. There will be a Meet the Candidates Forum held Friday night as part of this weekend's Editors and Broadcasters Day, sponsored by UND School of Communication. Those attending the forum will be George Sinner, Steve Sidness, Leon Malberg, and Earl Strinden. The latest word we have is that Byron Dorgan and Quentin Burdick may be attending, or at least by phone hookup. The forum will begin at 8 o'clock in the Union. When we return, we'll talk to journalist Bill Holden.
Ray, I have a wheelchair here that came from space.
You're kidding, Isaac.
Nope. Try and lift it.
Oh, it's light as a feather.
Well, perhaps a heavy feather. It's made from super light material developed for space vehicles. Weighs half what a standard chair weighs, and it's just as strong.
Must be a lot easier to maneuver, fold, and store away.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I'd say it's another down-to-earth benefit from space.
Space technology.
This is what's in it for you.
Children with cystic fibrosis want to grow up. More than half of them are now living into their 20s, but that's not long enough. It attacks a child's lungs, and there is no cure, so far. But today, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is supporting the research that can soon end this disease. The money you give goes immediately to help find a cure. Give a child a chance to grow up. Accept the challenge and support the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
Welcome back to Studio One. Our first guest has worked for several major news publications around the world, including the Chicago Tribune, the New York Times, the International Herald Tribune, and the Minneapolis Tribune. Bill Holden studied in Paris and is now an assistant professor of journalism at UND School of Communication. Studio One welcomes Professor Bill Holden. Bill, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tom.
In regards to journalism, more than any other event during the year, do election years best showcase both strengths and flaws of the American press, would you say?
I would think so. You get both sides. Anytime there are issues involved, people are going to choose teams and take sides. And you can hear that the press is not doing a very good job. The press is merely taking handouts from PR people. You get the other side of it too, in which they're doing too much digging and embarrassing people. So,
as a critique, Bill, your opinion, what have we seen? More flaw or more strength?
well, I think basically we see that the American press system operates as well as any in the world today. I think there are lazy journalists just as there are lazy auto mechanics and lawyers and doctors. I think that basically they do their job, and if they can dig up a story that's significant that the American electorate should be aware of, they will do it.
Mm-hmm. If the media creates a perception for us as a public, does that just not elevate the influence of the medium? Does it also maybe show kind of a passive public? Are we lazy and just hearing and not digging it out for our own?
I think people sometimes limit their resources as far as information goes. We have lots of sources of information if we're willing to go and get it, as you're perhaps suggesting. If we're satisfied with reading one newspaper, listening to one newscast, I think we're limiting ourselves and we won't be terribly well informed.
Mm-hmm. Do you find, Bill, that with print journalism, now with broadcast journalism, 24-hour immediate international coverage like a CNN, Does that put a pressure on print journalism to compete for sensationalism?
I think in one sense, many print journalists operate 24 hours a day anyway. The wire services have a deadline every minute, as they like to say. I think basically the print media do some things very well, things that the electronic media can't do. And that's their strength. And I think while they may go after the same stories as the electronic media, I think they do them in an entirely different fashion. And that's as it should be. We should give the print people time to explain the things that we need to know.
Compare for us European press and American press.
That's a pretty long stretch. I could perhaps say about the French press, in a sense, it looks a lot more old-fashioned than ours in terms of layout. The approach to the news can involve the journalist in many cases more than we would think acceptable in the United States. Of course, the English papers have some things they do very well. They have their own style, but and we certainly do a lot of the same things they do. But generally, I think that the American papers are ahead of the pack, if you wish, in layout and in trying to achieve some semblance of neutrality, if not total objectivity.
Bill, you used to write, now you're shaping tomorrow's journalists. What do you insist in the shaping that journalists now come out with?
Well, I was saying to a student today, maybe I'm being hypocritical, but I think in the long picture, a student journalist will be better shaped by studying things that we find in our College of Liberal Arts rather than concentrating solely on journalism. I think we're missing some content today in the formation of our students. I think in general, we need to devote more time to studying things such as economics, history, even philosophy, the social sciences and so forth that we may be sacrificing in terms of getting in one more media course. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a school of journalism. Obviously, I wouldn't say that. All I'm saying is that I think we need to emphasize those academic areas, perhaps even over the practice of journalism.
Bill, thanks for coming on.
Okay.
We appreciate you taking the time and being with us today.
Thank you.
School of Communication Assistant Professor Bill Holden. When we return, our Open Doors segment takes an inside look into the booming business of contemporary Christian rock.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
If there aren't enough people learning these skills, where will we get people to learn technical skills? Jobs will demand more education, better reading ability, and greater technical skills.
What does illiteracy mean in practical terms? It means many North Dakotans cannot read a newspaper, the announcements in a store window, or the menu in a restaurant. Help the North Dakota Literacy Coalition reach an illiterate. In North Dakota, call toll-free 1-800-544-8898.
Contemporary Christian rock is now recognized as a mainstay in the music industry, with several recent songs hitting the mainstream music charts. On our Open Door segment today, we explore the problems these artists face, recognized as serious ministers by the church and serious musicians by the industry.
Like a thief in the night, just like lightning in the sky, when Jesus comes to take his church away.
From stained glass windows to electric guitars, they are modern-day ministers of music. Many of them successfully building contemporary Christian music into both a big business and a prolific platform of ministry. However, the Svi-Tune ministry's strongest criticism ironically comes from within the church. There are some outspoken evangelists who denounce the approach as compromising and the music as immoral, arguing the contemporary sound has no place in the church.
You know, music has always been a vital part of the church, and always has been, always will be. I think that contemporary Christian music can be used for the concert stage, and it can be used in the church. I mean, my favorite kind of music are the kind that's created for both. That you have music that can be used in a church, but you do it in a concert hall, that you can do in a school, that you can do anywhere that really ministers and says something.
It's my personal position that all music and I'm talking about music without lyrics, but just instrumental music. Stylistically, music has no moral value until lyrics have been attached to it, and then the lyrics and the message and the mood that is put with the music by the writer, that gives the music moral value.
Ed Degarmo and Dana Key began their music ministry in the late 70s. David Meece has been composing, performing, and recording for 11 years. Although all are proven musicians, they are not to be mistaken for entertainers. They say they are ministers first, called to the ministry, using entertainment as a means to their evangelism.
I'm not a preacher. I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm a musician, you know, who's a Christian and who simply shares what the Lord's doing in my life through my songs. Consequently, what I do is I do share my faith very openly and very clearly. I entertain in order to minister. If you have just entertainment, you know, well, I'd rather go see Genesis.
Dana and I weren't playing music, we would be in another ministry because we feel like that we've been called to be in a ministry. It's just that we know how to play rock and roll, and God has decided that that's the way that we need to proclaim His name.
Because they are musicians with a gospel message, they are much like other evangelists, but then again, unlike other evangelists, unique in their financial support.
We consider ourselves very different from most evangelists in that we don't make our living off of contributions. We don't take up a love offering. We don't take contributions at all. Eddie and I make our living because we sell records and we sell concert tickets. If you want to buy one, you can buy one. If you don't want to buy one, you don't have to buy one. And we're not a non-profit organization, so we don't have to go constantly milk the audience for money for us to survive. And so each individual who makes a choice to support us supports us by buying a record or buying a concert ticket, and that's an individual decision. I think that distinguishes us from the tele-evangelists, and I really do hate to be lumped in with them.
For these evangelists, financial accountability is overshadowed by a greater concern: compromise. The measure of success in Christian music and the buzzword among most ministering musicians these days is crossover. That's when a Christian artist grows beyond the expected audience into the massive general listening market, top 40 airplay, and heavy album sales. Amy Grant and Stryper are two of the most recent achievers. This either provides a larger opportunity for ministry or presents a major distraction to a message that must not be compromised.
I find a lot of times if you start trying to water down your message to try to reach an unsaved kid, you know, you're not only not going to reach the unsaved kid, but you're not going to say anything if you do, you know. Most important thing for a contemporary Christian artist to do is to try to say something through his music, and that's going to encourage people and make a difference for them, whether you're trying to evangelize the unsaved or whether you're trying to speak to the Christian. And that's only going to be done if you stick by your convictions and you stand by them and you say, this is what God means to me, period.
More and more groups are speaking directly from the Scripture, and they're not mincing their words. They're making sure that their messages are very straightforward and scriptural, while other groups that feel uncomfortable with that are moving more into the area of being entertainers. And we've known that there was a distinction between the two kinds of groups for a long time, but it's just in the last few years that it's the difference between the ministers and the entertainers is becoming obvious to the audience.
I think the confusion has come from some people maybe starting and being in Christian music and ministering, and then all of a sudden saying, hey, I don't need to do this anymore. You know, all I need to do is sing. When they don't really understand that a lot of the people that really followed their careers and came to see them really like the other part better. You see what I mean?
Contemporary Christian music has every opportunity to expand within the music industry. Its mark of distinction will be the message of the artist. Perhaps then its direction rests upon the messengers, who are many, each ministering to the beat of a different drummer, but all to the same conductor.
We as Christians have an obligation to really work with each other and say, I'm going to do this for the Lord, and I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to encourage those around me, not beat them over the head, not be pompous, but really try to just say what I'm saying in order to encourage them and minister to them. And that's the way the Lord would have me do. and put God back at the center of it all.
Striper, a Christian rock band that's making a real name for itself as another crossover success, will be performing along with White Lion in Grand Forks tomorrow in the UND Fieldhouse at 7:30 p.m. When we return, we'll talk to playwright and author Bill Borden. Live theater. Grand Forks has it. Since 1947, Greater Grand Forks Community Theater has entertained the region and spotlighted local talent. Now based in a historic downtown fire hall, the group produces several plays a year, offering musicals, dramas, comedies, classics, and children's theater. Season tickets are now on sale. Call 746-0847 for more information. Our next guest is a multi-talented author who has published poems, short stories, plays, and a novel, including When the Meadowlark Sings, the North Dakota Centennial play, and the text for his opera Sakakawea, which will premiere in 1989. UND professor Bill Borden has also signed with Universal Studios in California for the production of his play The Last Prostitute. This play made him a finalist for the Stanley Drama Award and the San Jose State Playwright Contest. Studio One welcomes Bill Borden. Bill, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on both national and local successes.
Thank you.
We were talking earlier with Bill Holden about the approach maybe of a journalist in terms of an election year. How does it differ, the approach in writing from a journalist to, in your case, a playwright?
Well, a journalist has to stick to the facts and has a responsibility to tell the people as accurately as possible what's happening. A playwright would take those facts and play with them as he or she would, hopefully not just to distort, but to find some truth underneath the facts. Novelists, playwrights often remark that although we're creating works of the imagination, fictions, our aim is to speak some truth that you can't really get from straight journalism. You can discover the things underneath by making up things that didn't really happen.
You have written many one-act plays, many full-length plays. How often do you get to travel around the country and see them performed?
I suppose about once a year. Last March I was out in California with a production of a play called Loon Dance. I was there for 2 weeks attending rehearsals and doing some revisions. So it's nice to get out and see the productions.
Would it be the most rewarding part of your writing, to see them produced?
The writing itself is the most rewarding. I enjoy that the most, but certainly to see them take shape, take form, and in reality is what you're aiming for.
When the Meadowlark Sings will be debuted next year, what is that about?
Well, I wrote it specifically for the Centennial Drama Competition, and I asked myself what would be appropriate for a centennial play, and I thought it would be interesting to try to figure out how we could find out who we are as North Dakotans by looking at where we came from. And I thought, well, the time we began as a state was, we could say, is the state constitutional convention in July and August of 1889. So I looked at that period historically and found a lot of interesting things going on. So it takes place then. It involves the convention. It involves Alexander Mackenzie, a behind-the-scenes politician who was manipulating everything. Another of the protagonists is Sitting Bull, who at the time was trying to persuade the other Sioux chiefs not to sign away more of their land. So there's a lot of political things going on as well as a love story.
Bill, Sakakawea will also debut next year, and that is an opera. You've said that that could perhaps be the biggest theatrical event the state has ever had. Why?
Well, it's unique in that it's written by me, and the music's composed by Tom Peterson, a Grand Forks composer. We're bringing back several highly talented North Dakotans who have roots here, who have gone on to make successes for themselves. The musical director will be George Hansen, who's currently Associate Director of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. The director is a graduate of Red River High, who has been directing operas in Minneapolis and in New York. Our two lead singers have been singing in New York and in Europe. So it'll be a time of celebration where these people who have North Dakota roots, who are making it good elsewhere, can come back and share their talents with us. And it's the first musical drama, really homegrown, as it were, and celebrating such a large subject.
Bill, you are a busy guy with a pen, so thanks for stopping by here.
You're welcome.
Good to have you. Author and playwright Professor Bill Borden. When we return, we'll take a final look at this weekend's forecast.
When friend fell, he called for help. But the only ones there were ignorance, incompetence, indifference. Friend called for help again. Confusion came instead. At last, help came. Help knew what to do. In times of emergency, are you help? Learn Red Cross First Aid, where you work, or call your local chapter.
What do North Dakotans do during the winter? Hey, been to a state park lately?
Come out and play, North Dakota. Our state parks are open year-round.
UND students and alumni, dust off your green and white jackets because Homecoming 88 events start Monday, October 10th. To start it all off, students can vote for King and Queen candidates Monday and Tuesday in Wilkerson Hall and the Memorial Union from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, if you don't know who these people are, over a bowl of ice cream, you can meet them during the ice cream social in the Union Monday at noon. Turning to weather, Susan Betcher is here for the weekend's forecast. Susan?
Thank you, Tom. Looking at our forecast map for tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we see that temperatures across the tri-state area range mainly in the 30s. Looking at our forecast in detail, tonight we'll have clear skies, a low temp of 34 degrees, winds from the south-southwest at 0 to 5 miles per hour, and there is no chance of precipitation. Tomorrow we will have mostly sunny skies, a high temp of 66. Winds will be from the southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, and again, no chance of precipitation. The extended forecast for this weekend shows mostly sunny skies Saturday with highs in the upper 60s and partly cloudy skies on Sunday with temps again in the upper 60s. That's the weather. Tom?
Better take it while you can get it, the warm weather while it's here. Have a good weekend, folks. We'd like to thank our guests Bill Holden and Bill Borden for joining us today. From all of us here at Studio One, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.